Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. CinemAddicts episode 250. For this week, we are covering movies that are coming out or came out during the week of Friday, July 12th, 2024. We have a bunch of movies out this week. The Convert, Dandelion, and The Inheritance. We will be reviewing these films, plus Eric has a couple of recommends, and also rounding out the episode will be Bruce Purkey's weekly segment where he will review Godzilla. Is it Godzilla X Kong? Is that correct, Eric Holmes? Godzilla X Kong?
Yeah.
Godzilla times Kong, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, I think it's like the Last Kingdom or the something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and then Bruce will also have his take on The Convert. And last but definitely not least, hopefully, is his review of the Apple TV series Presumed Innocent, which, if that name sounds kind of familiar and you're a Gen Xer or a Gen Z or I don't know, Gen Y, I don't know what generation, but there was a movie called Presumed Innocent, which I saw in theaters years ago, starring Harrison Ford and Greta Scacchi, and now it's a series starring Jake Gyllenhaal. We'll see if Bruce Purkey enjoys that. Again, that will be after this CinemAddicts episode. Yes, Eric Holmes.
He did do Roadhouse, and that was good. So yeah, I presume Innocent will be good as well.
Very, very good. For this month's Patreon, we are covering the year 2006. It's Bruce Purkey's turn, and he wanted me to also mention that he put up a poll on our CinemAddicts Facebook group. Movies that are really high as far as the two picks for this month include the movies The Fall, Brick. Do you remember Brick, Eric? Brick starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Megan.
Yeah, it was kind of like what was it, like a detective movie, but it was like in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some interesting stuff. Slither and The Hills Have Eyes remake. And I just remembered Brick also starred Nora. Is that her name? Nora Zetner, who you know, Eric, and I know. She was the cop in Boneyard. She was one of the detectives in Boneyard. She was also in Brick back in the day. Yeah. But yeah, The Fall, Brick, Slither, The Hills Have Eyes remake. These are the movies that will
Slither,
be up on the year. Yes.
Slither, that's James Gunn, right?
James Gunn movie, yes.
Before he got sucked into the Marvel machine and will remain forever, and we'll never get another movie like Slither.
Or Super. I remember that movie he did years back called Super because I interviewed him for that movie. Really loved that movie, that film starring Rainn Wilson and Mos Def, and who else was in it? Ellen Page was in it. So some really interesting stuff. Yeah. So that was a very good superhero movie, just a sort of a twist on that. Eric Holmes, what's last week been like for interviews and movies and whatnot? And are you coming to LA pretty soon?
I am. I'll be out there. Well, I'll be out there late on the 3rd, but they're doing the Film Vault live show on the 4th, so I'll be there for that and probably hang out. I'll be there late on the 3rd, and I'll leave like late afternoon on the 6th. So
okay, cool.
When I'm not doing the live Film Vault thing, probably just be hanging out, getting into trouble. It'll be fun times.
Very good. I will not get into trouble with you, Eric Holmes, but I will have lunch with you possibly when you come in. Not late on Sunday night, but maybe Monday, we'll have some kind of lunch. Angie Clark just messaged me. Angie Clark, fellow CinemAddicts member and fan of the Film Vault and member of the Film Vault as well. She might be coming out as well during that week to see the show. And if she does, she'll have lunch with me and you on Monday. Yeah. Like you said, August 4th? Is that it? Monday, August 4th. If you're okay for a good lunch with me before you head over to see the Film Vault guys. Is that cool with you?
Definitely. And in fact, if you're down for it, because I'll bring my computer, maybe we just record an episode while we're out there.
No, we don't have to. We can just talk like normal people. This is not my normal. I'm not. This is not my normal voice, Eric.
I don't want to hear your normal voice. I want to hear your shill voice.
My shill voice. Oh yeah, thank you, Eric. That's so nice.
Hello, my name is Greg. This is how I normally talk. Folks, I would like to say though, any cinema dick, because I'm sure there's going to be a few out there. If you're coming out or you're already out there, definitely hit me up and we will party for sure.
Yes, and I'm not, hopefully Eric doesn't do this, but I was just joking, Eric. I was going to say, hey, maybe for the Film Vault evening when you go see that special show with Brian and our buddy Anderson Cowan and Avery, you can wear some Cinemax gear at the thing. That would be pretty funny, but no, I
I
mean,
mean, I
no,
probably will.
no, don't
I'll
do
be
that,
the
Eric.
guy.
So don't be that guy. Support, you do enough for our Cinematics family. So bring your TFB regalia and memorabilia and all that stuff and
I'll wear my
wear it
I'll,
proudly.
I'll wear my CinemAddicts shirt.
Dick Shirt Family Show. All right. So, yeah, again, Eric Holmes, whether you are a film vaulter, a cinematics person, or maybe both, hopefully both, hit up Eric when he's in LA.
Yeah.
Maybe have lunch with us. I don't want to treat Eric for lunch. I need some money. So maybe you can join us and actually put the bill. And maybe you can actually listen to, yes, I'm in the third person, Greg Srisavasdi's real voice, not my podcast chill voice, because my real voice is kind of like this. Right, Eric? This is my
Yeah.
real voice, Eric. This is this is
Now your real
what
voice is, hello, my name is Greg. This is how I normally talk to people.
This is Bruce Purkey. Why aren't you on the show right now? Please do your segment now, immediately. So, anyways, we love you, Bruce Purkey. We love you, Anderson Cowan, Avery, and Brian. Congratulations on the Film Vault live show on Hollywood. I guess again, August 4th. So, Eric, interviews this week. Who did you interview?
Oh, I got some great ones. We did The Inheritance, written by one of our favorites, Joe Russo, the good Joe Russo.
Okay, yes.
And I've never talked to his writing partner, Chris Lamont, before, and I got to speak to both of them. And we got like a half hour or so interview. That was really good. Then later on that day, I did an interview with one of the stars, Rachel Nichols.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, spoiler
Some
alert,
good stuff.
the movie was awesome. The interviews were awesome. It was a good day. It was a good day for sure.
And this will be a very good recording because again, one of the things that Eric and I don't do is we don't even know what Bruce Purkey's segment is like because we have this thing where we're trying to predict a movie we all watched on a given week. My job and Eric's job this week will be to predict his rating for The Convert. And if you listen to Bruce's review at the tail end of the show, he will guess, I'm assuming he guessed what Eric and I would have rated The Convert. So there's a lot of talk regarding this movie. Let's get straight off with The Convert in theaters on demand, July 12th, 2024. Guy Pearce, we love Guy Pearce. He is the top line. He is the lead of The Convert. I loved him in LA Confidential. Give me another Guy Pearce movie that you love, Eric Holmes.
The Proposition is a good one. Memento is a good one.
Yes, very good. He's just a very good actor. He reminds me of like an Eric Bana type, where both those guys can be lead actors or they can be part of an ensemble, right? So I think he was in Animal Kingdom. Wasn't he in Animal Kingdom? He played, but anyways, he's
LA Confidential. That's what I was.
LA Confidential. Yes,
that was
LA
a good
Confidential.
One. He was in Prometheus, his old guy.
Oh, right. Guy Pearce, yes. That was a weird segment that Guy Pearce was in. I just really love Guy Pearce as an actor. Let's see if The Convert is worth watching. Now, here is the plot line behind the film. It's directed by Lee Tamahori, quote, an action-filled historical epic with Guy Pearce as Thomas Monroe. He is a preacher who arrives in a colonial town in early 19th century New Zealand. I think it's set around 1830. The thing is, he's just trying to be a preacher in this little town, but there are two warring Maori tribes that are at each other's throats. Whose side does he pick? Will these warring Maori tribes spill over to this colonial town and wreak havoc and vengeance and violence into the area? Will there be a lot of people killed in this conflict? What can this preacher, again, Guy Pearce as Thomas Monroe, do amidst all these conflicts? Can he make a difference or maybe not? Does this preacher have a shady or dark past of his own that might be bleeding into the conflict that is the central theme or the central event of The Convert? Eric Holmes, your thoughts on this movie?
I liked it for the most part. It was kind of had a what was that Terrence Malick movie, The New World, had that kind of vibe to it. I could see some people kind of complaining that it's a little Dances with Wolves, or I mean that's what they claim, or that's what they complain about with Avatar, because it's got that kind of I don't think it's a spoiler to say Guy Pearce saves one of the women from the tribe and then converts her to their way of life. So it's got a bit of the white savior thing going, but beyond that, the movie looks absolutely beautiful. It's one of those movies that you could pause at any moment, and I want that framed on my wall.
Yeah,
it gets
agreed.
there's a war scene at the end or battle, whatever you want to call it, that was pretty damn great. I think the other than like the couple of misgivings, there's a little bit in the middle that kind of loses me for a bit, but other than that, this is a pretty good one. I liked it.
Yeah, I love this movie. The Convert, again, Lee Tamahori, I'm a huge fan. He directed the movies Mulholland Falls. He also directed Die Another Day, the James Bond movie. Triple X State of the Union. I forgot if I mentioned Once Were Warriors from 1994. I think that movie's a classic.
Along Came a Spider.
Along Came a Spider. He's a very, very good director. I have not seen the Nicolas Cage film Next, but I just really loved everything about this movie. I thought the performances by, I cannot pronounce her name, the girl, the young late woman that Thomas Monroe saves. She is Maori, and her name is, what is it, Ragimai, and she's played by this really wonderful actress, and she's almost a co-lead in this movie. The battle scenes are electric, but even more is actually just learning about this tribe, this Maori culture, and how it's trying to mix with the culture of the preachers. And I just, part of it is just really getting into this environment in this remote area they're in. And like Eric was saying, a lot of these scenes are beautiful. If you want to watch something very picturesque and vista-like shots, this is worth watching in the theaters. As for the actual white savior complaint, could be a little bit, but I think there's enough focus on the Maori culture, the tribes, or a way of life that I found really immersive and interesting. So
I think that's also kind of the point of it, isn't it? Like
yeah, that's the point.
kind of they comment on it, so it's not like white saviors. Yes, you need us to save you. It makes comments on that as well.
Right. And he's trying to actually figure out, well, this is my culture, but I'm getting passionate about what the Maoris are all about. So he's trying to reconcile his own background with this new culture, this culture that he and people that he grows and gradually gets to love and care about. So I thought this was a very wonderful film. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. The Convert is a movie that it's, again, in theaters, but if it's on demand, you have some extra bucks to spend on it, purchase it, or rent it. It's really, really good. Eric, final thoughts on The Convert and your rating?
Yeah, definitely great to look at. Master and Commander, I guess, is another one. It's not really set on a boat the whole time, but it's got that kind of same sort of epic kind of feel to it. Yeah, this is one I actually would like to watch in the theater just because it looks so grand and beautiful. But yeah, I think I'm right with you on 4.5. There's a couple nitpicks, but overall, this is a really good movie.
Also, there are a couple of Guy Pearce. Eric and I were talking about how good of an actor he is. There is a couple of moments where he has a long monologue, and it's Guy friggin' Pearce. He just nails it. You really believe him as a preacher. Props to Lee Tamahori. At this stage in his career as a filmmaker, he just comes out with, as Eric likes to say, a banger. This is a banger for me. 4.5 stars for me, 4.5 stars for Eric Holmes. What is Bruce Purkey's rating, Eric Holmes? What is your guesstimation on Bruce?
I would guess he would have a couple of similar misgivings as I did, but I think this is hard to say. I could see him giving him a 4-star, or I could see him going like the complete other way and just like not buying into it at all and giving it like 2 stars. So I don't know.
Okay, pick a rating.
I'll guess 4. I'll guess 4.
You're going to guess 4 for Bruce Purkey. I have a feeling that Bruce Purkey is going to recommend The Convert with a whole bunch of caveats. And I think he's going to have misgivings about maybe the plot line, or maybe it's a little bit too slow, or maybe they should have gotten to the point more, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to credit the cinematography and the performances. I think he's going to give this one sort of a slight recommendation, slight pass, and give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Let's see what Bruce Purkey says about it.
You heard it already. Cheated.
No, I didn't. I did not hear it. I did not hear it. So
Nah,
I'm
I know.
guessing.
I'm effing with you because it's a family show.
Yeah, yes. As you just said, effing. But by the way, effing is not. It's not a swear word.
I,
It's
I
part
almost
of the
said
thing.
I almost said the full freight word.
You almost went full freight with the slangs. Okay, so thank you, Eric, for not doing that and making my editing job way easier this week here on CinemAddicts. 4.5 for Eric, 4.5 for me, and Bruce Purkey, you misgiving caveat raider. I think you could get 3.5. And Eric's he sort of gives you has a little bit of faith in you with 4 stars for The Convert. Again, in theaters and on demand, July 12th, 2024. I will put the links. Hopefully, the links will be up on Amazon where you can rent or purchase it. I can really confidently say this is worth purchasing, renting or purchasing, right, Eric? This is sort of like the
I would say,
rent.
well,
Yep.
I see maybe renting. I don't know that I would buy it because it's not a movie that I would go back to over and over. Like, I don't think it's got that high rewatchability, but it's definitely one that, like, if it's playing in theater, I would watch this in theaters over renting it for sure,
Oh,
just because
okay.
it looks that good. But buying it's kind of like, am I going to watch this again? Am I not? It's hard to say.
Well, folks, I'm all about the pennies, so I would rather you not go to theaters and rent it and use our Amazon link and give me Bruce and Eric and Anderson some coins. But no, seriously, it's worth watching in theaters, worth renting. As far as buying, I would buy it myself on Blu-ray or DVD since I'm a physical media guy. After watching The Convert, I went back and rewatched certain scenes of this movie. So, which leads me to say that's why I'm going to purchase it on physical media. I think it's a rewatchable film for me. It's sort of right up my alley when it comes to the genre. But I'm glad, Eric, you and I agreed on the rating. Now, will you and I agree on this other movie called The Inheritance? The
God, I
Inheritance
hope
is
so.
okay. The Inheritance is written by Joe Russo and Chris Lamont. Eric mentioned his interview with them recently, and it's directed by Alejandro. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Do you have any idea, Eric Holmes?
Bruges.
Alejandro
Bruges.
Very. Oh, thank you, Eric Holmes. Okay, so we mentioned all of these filmmakers behind The Inheritance, but essentially, what's so interesting is I listened to Eric Holmes' interview with Russo and Lamont. It was about 27 minutes or 28 minutes, and Eric didn't really get into the weeds of The Inheritance. And I was wondering while listening to this interview, why is Eric not nitpicking plot points and et cetera, et cetera? Well, this is my way of apologizing to Eric because there's a huge reason why he did not nitpick on what I mean is break down the plot structure. And we're going to get to that or allude to that in a second. So on the plot summary is on the eve of his 75th birthday, billionaire Charles Abernathy, he invites his kids to his really beautiful mansion, old school mansion, right? Just an eye-catching property. He invites his kids over and he tells them, you guys need to protect me tonight, just the immediate family. Actually, it's not just the immediate family, it's one of the wives of one of the kids. So there's sort of a rule that's already broken. So there's 4 kids and 1 interloper that's being the wife of one of the kids. Okay, so ultimately that's 5 people. They're invited by billionaire Charles Abernathy, and he says, you have to protect me tonight because at the stroke of midnight tonight, I'm going to be killed. The kids are going, what's going on? Goes, well, if you guys don't protect me by the time the clock strikes 12, I'll be dead. And I amended my will because if I'm dead by the stroke of midnight, you guys are going to be written out of my will. So first of all, they're all
not probably. That's what it is.
Yeah,
if I'm alive, you guys get your inheritance early. If not, you get nothing.
Right. And that is not a spoiler because that's the movie, The Inheritance. Yeah. And Eric wisely said in his interview that this movie, he dubbed it as a whodunit. And that is absolutely almost 100% correct. We're going to get to that in a second. But so that is the main goal of this. The kids need to keep their dad alive by 12. If they do that, each of them are going to be billionaires. If they don't, forget it. Their dad's dead. They're not part of the will. So, and who knows, they might even be killed in the process themselves. Who knows what's going to happen with the inheritance? What makes this movie interesting and why Eric did not mention the plot points in the inheritance as much in the interview is because this is not just your average escapist whodunit. There is an extra element to it that I feel bumps it up a notch. And Eric and I, the frustration thing is maybe Eric and I don't know if I'm actually going to broach this subject with Eric right now. Maybe we'll do a quick spoiler for our Patreon listeners
I'm
for The
absolutely down
Inheritance.
for that.
Okay, so Patreon listeners, we're going to give you early access to The Inheritance, our spoilers of The Inheritance on the Patreon feed this week. You guys get it early, and then maybe a week or two later for our other YouTube subscribers, you'll get our spoiler discussion of The Inheritance. But yeah, it's a whodunit, but there's an extra layer to it that I find to be really cool. Do not read too many reviews of the Inheritance, because I read a review after watching this, and one reviewer actually said what the twist was by saying one modifier, one specific word that you should not be saying.
The thing about that, though, is that that's kind of in the trailer too.
That's so horrible.
The thing is, when that thing comes, I'm like, my initial thought was like, is that cheating? And then when I went back and watched it the second time, it was like everything's right there. I'm like, that is so obvious. Why did I not pick up on that? Why did I not pick up on that
right.
the first time?
I mean, I think, I always push back with Bruce Purkey not watching trailers, but I guess this is one of the things where if you guys have seen the trailer,
thing is, it's a good movie, even knowing that ahead of time, because there's still a bit of, because it's not even a who done it, it's a who's going to do it sort of, because no one's dead at the outset. It's there's a threat here, or there's a threat coming.
Well, Eric, should I cede the floor to you, since you did the interviews? You are a huge fan of the Russo and Lamont collaboration.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually cede the floor, and you tell our listeners what you want to say, spoiler or not, about The Inheritance in your review of it.
I'll keep it really vague. I mean, we already mentioned the basic premise, and it's it's kind of like the knives out, the clues, all that stuff. The movie starts off, and you get all the main characters, and in these kind of movies, usually, let's see, at the end you got the denouement. What's like the beginning version of that, where you're setting everything up? The denouement, I guess.
Right, denouement.
Like, so you're in a murder mystery. Everyone's in the same room, and right away okay, one of these people is the murderer. Right. It's the movie telling you that, and then as it's going on, you're trying to figure out who it is, and then as people die off, well, couldn't have been them. All right. So the next, but the thing is with the first kill is pretty much when it takes a turn. Because usually that's the first kill. That's the first person we're checking off the list that didn't do it. But there's something strange about it. So it's like, okay, I got to rethink this whole thing. And so like the rest of the movie is just kind of a puzzle, and, it got pretty close, but then, it gets to the end, everything is revealed, and it's awesome. And then I went back and watched it again, because I'm like, there's just things that just don't make sense. Like, it feels like this is cheating. And I went back and watched it again. I'm like, oh no, this is playing completely fair. I just missed everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a hallmark of a good murder mystery, because you want to put out red herrings, and you want to keep things kind of hidden, but you want to give the audience all the tools to be able to figure out if they want to look into it that far. And this one, you absolutely can. In fact, I would say if I wasn't such an idiot, it'd be obvious to a lot of people, but I'm dumb and slow and stupid and ugly, and no one likes me. So.
I'm going to echo Eric's statements and say the same thing for me in all those qualities and facts. But look, whether you know what the spoiler is or not, The Inheritance is still an entertaining movie. Yeah. All that said, the more clueless you are, I think if you like the whodunit genre, you're going to appreciate The Inheritance because of that extra layer it brings to the proceedings. You don't see that kind of stuff too much in this genre. Again, I'm dancing around it. Eric's dancing around it, but I thought this was a highly entertaining film. Let's just mention the cast, okay? Yes. Bob Gunton, who you've seen a million times in movies and television series.
Shawshank Redemption, The Warden, probably his most famous role, I think.
Right, very good, Eric. And then Bob Gunton was also in 24. He had I think a major character, and I used to watch 24. He was one of the bad guys, I think, if I recall. He's just a very memorable character actor. He is the patriarch in the film. There's also Peyton List. You might know her from the Cobra Kai series. Brianna Middleton, I never saw her before, but she comes off as she has leading actress material. And she was the wife of one of the one of the sons, that son being Austin Stowell. Also have to mention Rachel Nichols, and David Walton. They play twins who are the business-minded kids of the billionaire, while Austin Stowell is sort of the nice charity guy. He's the one who runs a charity organization with his wife, played by Brianna Middleton. And again, the aforementioned Peyton List from Cobra Kai. She is the youngest of the crew, and she is a social media influencer. It's a very interesting movie. My only complaint, and it's not a complaint once finishing the movie, is just have a little bit of patience when you watch The Inheritance, because it starts off a little bit slowly, but then there's a reason why it starts off slowly, because the rest of the movie is a ramp up to the end. So have a little patience with The Inheritance, just get into the vibe of it, and then, as Eric mentioned, there is a first kill. Once the first kill happens, everything just really starts to ramp up at a very fast pace. With the budget involved and the indie-ness of this vertical film, I really enjoyed The Inheritance. I'm giving it 4 stars. What about you, Eric Holmes?
Oh, goodness. I kind of want to say 3-star banger just because. Okay. But okay. I think usually 3-star bangers are like, if you're into this thing kind of genre, you're really going to love it. But if not, it's not going to win you over. And I think this will have good, if enough people watch it, this could have enough crossover. So I don't think 3-star banger really works for this. Okay. But I had an incredible amount of fun with it. I mean, just went back and watched it again. After watching it the first day, went back the next day and watched it again. If it's playing in theaters near me on Friday, I'm going to watch it a third time. I love this. And I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer because, early on, I knew Joe Russo was writing this. I knew Alejandro Borges was going to direct it. And then once he started getting like an early cut, Joe Russo hit me up and was like, dude, this is going to be so good. And he got excited, which got me excited. And then watch it and lived up to it. I would have to go 4.5 on this.
4.5 stars from Eric Holmes. Wow. Very, very good, Eric. 4.5 stars from Eric Holmes.
Yes. And double feature it with Soulmates. Because that's got a similar kind of fun vibe to it.
Gosh, you really like your Joe Russo films.
I do. By the way, as much as people love the other Joe Russo, which I don't get, but maybe he's a nice guy. I don't know. I love our Joe Russo. Our Joe Russo is
really good. Yes. My only pushback with Joe Russo is maybe he pushes back with me. I really loved Hard Kill, man. I really love that movie. So there's I think he and Lamont wrote the original. Well, you get to listen to the interview with Eric Holmes because they talk about the original screenplay behind Hard Kill, which was called Open Source. Eric, so I'm not going to spoil your interview, but it's some really good insights on the making of Hard Kill, at least from the screenplay aspect of it. So listen to Eric's interview. It's right now up on our Deepest Dream YouTube channel. All right, again, The Inheritance, 4.5 stars from Eric Holmes, 4 stars from me, in theaters and on demand July 12th, 2024. And yes, I am getting sick of my shill voice as well. This podcast voice, I don't know why I do this when I should actually be just doing like this, Eric Holmes, but it's just so more monotone and boring. What's not monotone and boring is our final featured film of this week. This movie is called Dandelion. And I forgot to mention, The Inheritance has some uncompromising elements, and we're going to talk about that in our spoilers. But what I really loved about Dandelion is it's the portrait of a young singer-songwriter musician played by Kiki Lane. You might know Kiki Lane from The Old Guard, and most notably, If Beale Street Could Talk. She is front and center in Dandelion, playing the titular character. Dandelion, she lives in Cincinnati. She works at a hotel bar where no one listens to her music. She's struggling. She lives with her mother, who's not really in good health, and she's really trying to make a name for herself as an artist. But she's a little bit older now. I think the movie refers to her as 40, and so she hasn't really lived out her dreams. But she decides to actually attend a motorcycle rally in South Dakota, where they have some kind of music competition there, or maybe a chance to show your musicianship. And at the rally, she meets a dude named Casey. Casey's played by Thomas Doherty, and Casey is a very talented singer-songwriter musician himself. The two become immediate friends, and their bond and relationship and possible love leads to a unique collaboration of music, and possibly Dandelion. From this new relationship and friendship with Casey, she will see her music expand in different dimensions or different avenues. What I really loved about this movie is it's written and directed by Nicole Riegel. And I interviewed her as well. And I interviewed Thomas Doherty and Kiki Lane. I'll be putting those up on YouTube as well later this week. But this movie, it could have been about this struggling musician who, at the end, she's writing really hard and she gets a hit song and she starts making money. And we've seen those type of movies before. Instead, Dandelion is more of a organic look at what it takes, what sacrifices must you make if you want to be in the music industry. Sometimes it's not about making that number one hit that'll make you millions and you'll have a amazing tour. This is not that type of movie. This is more about the gradual step-by-step sacrifices that you make to create and distribute and express your artistry to sometimes people who don't really give a you-know-what family show about your life or your art. So it's inspiring. It's very, at times, downbeat because it's very realistic. And I love the chemistry between Kiki Lane and Thomas Doherty. The music in Dandelion is also very good. And yeah, sometimes this movie actually feels like a documentary because it's so real. So I highly recommend Dandelion. Great performances from Kiki Lane and Thomas Doherty. Some real, almost made me chop onions at moments, but it's a very real feeling film. And this is one of those movies that I feel like it's good for the rewatch. In theaters, July 12th, 2024. Again, Kiki Lane and Thomas Doherty are the leads. Kiki's very good in this movie. Written and directed by Nicole Riegel. My rating for Dandelion, 4.5 stars. And I apologize to you, Eric Holmes, that I did not give you a screening link because sometimes I think, Eric has so many things to do. I'm not going to request a link for Eric. But I don't know, Eric, these kind of indie type movies, would it have been sort of up your alley because we're guessing of things we like?
It's hard to say. So, some of them I dive into. Others I like get through like the first 10 minutes. I'm like, this is going to be rough.
Yeah, this is going to be rough.
I have to try very hard to stay awake through this one.
F. Greg and his stupid links that he sends me every week. You see it. So yeah. Well, we had some really good recommendations this week. Look here, Dandelion, The Convert, and The Inheritance. So 3 good films.
Yeah.
Hopefully, who knows? Maybe Bruce is going to give Dandelion. Maybe he'll give The Convert 0 stars. We'll see what he says about The Convert. Check towards the end of the show. Wrapping things up are Eric Holmes, your recommendations. By the way, I told you and Bruce that Caligula doesn't come out till August. You decided to watch it anyway. You have August.
I thought that was this week, man. You mean to tell me I didn't have to watch that again?
Oh, okay. Stop being sarcastic. You know what?
I'm not. I crammed that in last minute. Well, last minute. The movie's that's 3
what the
hours
family
long.
said. 3 hours. Look, August 16th, I put on the Google Doc. I'm not getting mad at you, Bruce, but for some reason, both of your eyes trained to Caligula Ultimate Cut. We're going to get to that in a second. But look, there is wait, did I put it here? Unsinkable. Yes. This is not a movie. This is an audio movie. Eric Holmes, what can you tell our listeners about Unsinkable?
I guess you could best compare it to like a audio drama or an audio podcast. They say that it's not that, it's an audio movie. Kind of the same thing, really. What this does different than most audio dramas, though, is that this is action forward. And so it has more than a couple parts. I listened to 5 of the episodes, and I think there's like 8 or 10 total. I can't remember how many total. So I don't know that I can really give this a star rating just yet because it's not done. But okay. Of what I've seen, we'll just kind of go that route. But and I said seen again. I didn't see it. I listened. But either way,
experienced it. Yeah.
I guess that kind of paints a picture of what it's like because you put the headphones on, lay back, close your eyes, and then, kind of your mind's eye sort of paints the picture for you. And I think that's where this really shines, especially because I've heard other audio dramas before, and I like those. And, even audiobooks have a similar kind of feel, but not quite the same. But what with this one, it's basically kind of like a Hunt for Red October sort of thing. But they're on a battleship instead of a submarine. But the weird thing is I got a lot of kind of claustrophobic submarine vibes from this, probably just because of all the explosions and stuff going on. But this is really frantic. It's got, it got a couple of moments where you get to breathe. And it's it's weird because since they can't show things, they have to sort of have characters say what's going on. But then there's certain points where like just the sound design kind of paints that picture for you. And
Hmm.
then so you can get that context without the person saying, I'm pushing the button. Now the torpedo's going out. Oh no, now the torpedo's coming. Like a lot of the design kind of covers some of that. Some of it does get clunky just because of what it is and what it's aspiring to. You know, sometimes you just got to cheat it with exposition. You got no way around it. Other times they get kind of clever with it. And I think this is, I would say it's definitely an assault. Like when the action parts like really start ramping up, it's just explosions, like, you know, chaos, and it kind of draws you into that sort of you know, melee, I get not melee, but that kind of battle and situation they're in. And then when it takes time to breathe, it's like I'm almost catching my breath as well. It's like, oh, okay, all right, let's sit down for a second. And then I realize, oh, I'm laying down. I should be fine. But yeah, this is pretty good stuff. If you like audio dramas, if you like podcasts, if you like audio books, like if you like just wearing headphones, experiencing stuff like that, I think this would be right up your alley. And you have a lot of fun with it. Because again, this is more frantic than other ones you're probably used to. And also the sound obviously is great. I mean, it has to be because it's audio only, but at the very least, I would recommend checking out an episode and seeing, because the episodes are like 20 minutes long or something like that. They're pretty short. I would recommend just checking out an episode, see if this is for you. And I think a lot of people are going to dig this.
Eric also did the interviews for Unsinkable. I think you interviewed Misha Crosby and John Mawson for this.
Yeah.
They're the showrunners of the audio movie series, again, 11 part. We also have to mention some of the, not bearing the lead, this is it. There are some really good actors involved in this audio drama. They include an actor named John Malkovich, Harry Hamlin from Clash of the Titans and Mad Men. There's also Natalie Emmanuel, loved her in Game of Thrones. She's in the Fast and Furious movies as well. Of course, Brian Cox from Brian Cox from where, Eric? Tell me the movie that you love Brian Cox from. Super Troopers, Rushmore. There's also Manhunter.
Super Troopers 2.
Super Troopers 2, of course. Succession. Also, Thomas Brody Sangster from Love Actually and Maze Runner. So some really good actors as well. And Eric is not going to give a rating because he's only 5 parts into this audio movie.
Based on the 5 episodes so far, I probably go 3.5 so far, because there's definitely room for improvement. But since this is kind of like the first of its kind of this new sort of action audio movie, I think there's room for improvement. But this kind of coming out of the gate on the right foot. And I can see like John Mawson and Misha Crosby doing more of these. And I could see them getting better at this as they do more. I don't know if they're going to do more, but if they did, or if someone else like kind of came out, like I could see this being a new kind of thing to explore, new way of new art form or new form of entertainment. But yeah, if I was given, probably do 3.5. But yeah, this is we're at the ground level right here. It can only go up from here, and I think it will.
Okay, finally, Eric, again, we're going to just re-meet on this on August 16th on Caligula Ultimate Cut. That's coming out in theaters August 16th. Can you say a couple of sentences? Should people be excited about Caligula Ultimate Cut, Eric? And why?
If you like Caligula, this is more of that.
That's worth the 3. Was that worth the 3 hours for you? Short and sweet, or short and sweet and gross?
Not gonna review it today.
You're not gonna review it today.
We're gonna review it now. Caligula is kind of one of those like what do we call it? Like Sallow or Serbian film. Like it exists merely to be, you know, provocative.
Sure.
In the story, I mean, it's got a story there. It doesn't have a 3-hour story. It's got like a hour story tops that they stretch out to 3 hours because you gotta throw in all the decadence. But if you like that kind of movie, this is definitely probably one of the better ones. For others of us, it goes on and on and on. And I think this is true. Like I don't recall what's different from this cut than the ones I've seen previously. But you know, it's been like years since I've seen the.
Do you think I'll like it?
I'm not sure how much of a closet perv you are. Maybe.
Oh my goodness, you have to be a closet perv to love.
There's a lot of sex in this. Not like full penetration or anything because it's a family show,
Yes.
but this is as close to being a porn that you can without it actually being a porn. Although
Yes,
some might say it is.
This is not indie porn. This is not indie porn. This is penthouse porn. Rest in peace, Bob Guccione. Caligula, the ultimate cut. It's exclusively in theaters starting August 16th. Eric was vague because we will talk about it even more. It's fully reimagined and restored in 4K UHD. So we'll be talking about that August 16th. I don't know. Bruce read the memo. We'll see speaking of penetration, we'll see how deep Bruce Purkey will get with Caligula, the ultimate cut, in a few minutes. So hold your horses. Are there horses in this movie? I don't even want to say if they're okay. So we're gonna see what Bruce is gonna say, or hear what Bruce is gonna say in moments. But final thoughts, Eric Holmes. Anything else? Are we missing things? Because we're gonna get it to that.
I'll have a bucket of Vaseline ready for the Caligula interview later on. But
right, that's for
gonna be in LA August 3rd to the 6th. Come say hi or don't. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but more importantly, go watch The Inheritance. That movie's awesome. Go watch The Convert. That movie's awesome.
Yeah. Go watch Dandelion.
Check out Unsinkable. That's I believe that's available now, or at least a couple episodes are. Give that a shot. See if that's something you're into. And Dandelion. Greg liked it. Maybe you will too. Go check out. It was a pretty good week. Actually, it was a really good week, I think.
Really good week. Yes, we'll make sure next week is even worse. We're gonna have just bad movies for us to review. So we can be negative. We were just too positive this show, Eric.
Yeah, we'll be talking about The Godfather, Godfather 2. We'll be talking about
the conversation, right? Yeah,
we talk about Winter Soldier. Definitely talk about mid movie. We'll be talking
the Bad Russo, right? Okay, a lot of stuff we're gonna be talking about next week. But look, that's enough for me and Eric right now because we have some stuff to do. We're gonna have to talk about The Inheritance even more for our Patreon listeners. Early access.
Have to get to.
I'm sorry, we get to. Eric, every single week, Eric tries to say, Greg, stop acting so entitled with your shill podcast voice. And I go, yeah, I will, Eric. I'll do it. I'll do whatever you want. And then we start turning on the mic, and I sound like this. Stop it, Greg. Stop sounding like a podcast shill. Stop
yes,
it.
Eric. I will stop doing the podcast shill voice. I will use my normal voice, which I am talking in right now.
Very good, Eric.
Because my name is Greg, and this is how I talk.
All right, folks, we're finished. This was the bad taste part of the cinematic. Get ready for I was going to say the short and sweet. This is 28 minutes you're going to get from Bruce Purkey. This is going to be some sweet stuff and some great musings from Bruce Purkey. But before we get to Bruce, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining CinemAddicts.
So this is the second one of these things I'm doing. What do we call this? What do we call this segment? I mean, you made it all the way through the show, and now you're listening to me. Thank you, by the way. And you are a diehard, obviously. So, I don't know. Should we have a segment name? What is this, CinemAddicts After Hours? Do we have, a sounder for it? I don't know. I was thinking how to think about CinemAddicts and the way this works now. Maybe like a gothic horror story. Maybe it's, okay. Imagine yourself. You've been betrothed to a lord of a Gothic manor out in the countryside in New England somewhere. It's the late 1800s. You've arrived and been shown the grounds. And Greg is obviously the master of this manor. I don't know what it's called. CinemAddicts Grove. It's not Crimson Peak. That's been taken. He shows you about the house. You feel lucky to have found such a rich station in life. So, the slight inconveniences of being tethered to this man are not enough to assuade you. You wish such grand and opulent appointments. You want this, so you're going to stick with it. You are shown the grounds by the groundskeeper, the dashing yet somewhat rakish and elusive Eric, but then you are always going back to the master of the house. He's a little bit standoffish. He has strange ways, but he's a kind man, so you go with it. And then during the daytimes, he goes to some room and talks to people. You're not sure what's happening there, but, he's a little eccentric. Anyway, during the days, you're allowed the entire run of the manor, but for one rule, you are not allowed to go into any room that is locked. So, of course, you go all around and go see all the great rooms. A lot of them, there's quarters for the different wait people. There are, the kitchen, the basement, everything seems to be unlocked. It's an older house, probably ghosts, who knows? But in the attic, there's one locked room and you can't get into it. What is behind that door? Well, it's me. It's, of course, the black sheep of the CinemAddicts family. I might be up in that attic room. I'm sure occasionally they'll throw me a scrap, but, my fingernails have grown long and yellow. Catch a rat now and then. Just keep my scrawny frame alive. Wish I was a scrawny frame. Not very scrawny right now. I'm probably like disheveled and dirty, and beard has grown long and gray, and my hair is scraggly, and I barely see the light. So even the slight, slim, dim, ray of light from your candelabra as you walk through the hallways near the locked door, it's not enough to let me see the room I'm in. And while I'm in there, I just tell myself stories of imaginary dreams I have. There you go. That's how CinemAddicts is now. Okay. Enough of this nonsense. What did I see this week? We're going to always start with the feature. I'm sure by now you've already heard both Greg and Eric talk about the movie The Convert, directed by Lee Tamahori, known probably most well from most of us, at least, for Once We're Soldiers, Once We're Warriors, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Which I did review and see for the first time, I don't know, the last year, if I remember correctly. Pretty great movie about the kind of the modern experience of indigenous people in New Zealand, Maori people, and how, they've kind of lost their identity and lost their way. And it's come out in a lot of violent and unhealthy ways in this kind of modern society, or at least modern society in the late 80s, early 90s, whenever that was. The Convert is a different story. It's a little more traditional story, kind of dashing adventure / sweeping epic of justice and injustice. It starts out essentially with Guy Pearce playing Thomas, and he is aboard a ship being taken to his new home, which is going to be as a preacher in this small kind of outpost town in the beginning stages of the white development of New Zealand. So in very many ways, and he's on a ship, in very many ways, this is a Western. Straight out of the gate, it's a Western. In fact, it has a lot of similarities to movies like Dances with Wolves. And if Lee Tamahori wasn't the director, I'm sure immediately people would be aiming white savior problems with this movie. Although, I mean, that they're there for sure. I mean, he literally is a white savior, because at the beginning, the ship stops for them to get off and get some supplies to repair it. And they, the main crew goes aboard, and he's kind of with the crew. So he's not, a trained sailor or whatever. He has a horse he's bringing too, a white horse. So you literally see him riding his white horse to shore, this white preacher guy. He's a little rough around the edges preacher. He's not like he's devout, but he's kind of seemed like he's new to the position, like he's kind of recently converted. So he seems like. And very quickly he encounters some of the Maori people. They have a quick interaction. It works out okay. The sailors kind of help him navigate around that. And then there's another one very quickly where you see two different Maori groups fighting, and the one group is just massacring the other group. And being the, quote, white savior that he is, he steps in at the last minute to try to save this man and woman who are about to be, executed in front of him, because the Maori group that's beat the other group is obviously way more mighty than these sailors. They're not even going to try to get involved. And basically he's given a choice. Well, here, he offers his horse, his beloved horse. And he says, save their lives. And the warlord that's about to get them killed says, well, that's only good enough for one person, you pick. And he picks the guy to be killed The guy is killed, the woman survives, and basically becomes thrown into his care. So now this preacher suddenly has under his care a Maori woman who obviously has no wish to be under the care of some white dude. She's a warrior. And that's kind of the basic setup. So classic setup, kind of grand adventure. It's going to, of course, be all about the experience of this white person trying to understand the other side of things, the Maori side of things, as opposed to the white colonial side of things. And as viewers, we will follow along and have his journey. In that sense, it's pretty entertaining and pretty solid. I mean, I would say the first third or half is kind of the point of view of him with this woman and how that impacts his new position as this preacher in this small outpost town in this white world within this larger not white world of New Zealand. And then it transitions to the second part being him in the Maori world of that time and how that works. And both sides are pretty interesting. And I think for those who miss those kind of classic historical adventures, this will be a very solid pick. I enjoyed it as well. I think if my biggest gripe, and you kind of probably get that because of the way I've been talking about white savior and stuff, I really wish the point of view of this movie had been different, because the real star, the real focal point of this movie is the character, the woman, Rangamai, I can't say her name really well, played by Tiarore Nagaton Mabo. I'm sure I'm massacring that name. And really the point of view should have been hers, not his. And I imagined the whole movie, I kept imagining, like, what would this movie have looked like if we started with her? We started with her and saw, 15, 20 minutes of her life instead of his life on the boat. We saw her life and what it was like, and then saw her go through the trees and encounter these sailors and this white preacher dude. And what would her point of view be? And what would her point of view be when all of her people get killed except for herself, and she gets taken into the quote care of this white dude? And I think it does give you a good feel for that, but it's always from the point of view of him as the focal. And I get it. Guy Pearce is a name. Guy Pearce is going to sell tickets to people, not that many these days, but the people who will go to see a movie like this are going to see Guy Pearce, going to see Lee Tamahori. They're going to be like, this, I want to check this out. So for that, I think would be the only kind of big negative for me. Other than that, I think it's a pretty entertaining and pretty satisfying movie. And even though it hits some of the beats you'd expect, it does also have some surprises. Oh, one other big negative for me, this is a personal big negative. It has digital blood in these battles. And we have a lot of battles and fights, and there's a fair amount of violence, as you'd expect. And when they have digital blood, it always pulls me out. Two things that just don't work in movies for me digitally yet are the breath when it's cold outside is always looks fake, even now. Ever since way back in the Titanic days, it always draws me out of the movie. And the digital blood even more so, because it's very easy and inexpensive to create blood effects. We've been doing it for, 70 years, a long time. We have squibs, we have fake blood. It's not that hard. It doesn't cost that much. And it just looks more effective if it's done right. That'd be my big knock on that. Overall, I'm going to go 4 stars on this. And I think that's a pretty solid movie. This is one of those movies, if you didn't go out in the theater to watch it, checking this out on a streaming service will be really solid for sure. So I would definitely highly advise that for people. Now, if this sounds like something you're interested in, it'd probably be even higher. Now, how will Eric and Greg rate this? Because you would probably already know at this point. This seems like, Greg really likes Westerns for sure. I think this is going to really fall into that Western category for Greg. Plus, it just has, a good solid story as well. So I'm going to say Greg goes 4.5 or 5 stars for this. I'm pretty sure that Greg will really like this movie. I'm going to say Greg goes 5 stars. Eric is a little harder on this because Eric could swing either way. You do that. You swing either way, Eric. Come on. Just come out with it. Okay. I think Eric's going to like it too. I think there's going to be enough solid storytelling here that'll draw him in. And I think it'll overpower the period piece stuff, because a lot of times he doesn't really like dry period pieces. But I don't think this is very dry. It has adventure elements and threat and story beats. So I'm gonna say Eric goes for. I'm gonna say he goes 4 stars. We'll see. All right. Anyway, do you guys like that when I try to figure out what they did, or is it just boring because you already know? I don't know. Of course, let me know about this at all, what you think. Okay, I think all the rest of the movies I watched, they probably did not. We got a screener for Caligula, The Ultimate Cut. Now, for any of you who know, which probably most of you at least have heard of Caligula, that came out in 1980, 1979, something like that. And it was a notorious movie because it was somewhat funded by Penthouse guy Bob Guccione. Various members of the cast at various points wanted themselves taken off the credits or disowned the movie as trash because it was supposed to be this big epic historical erotic drama like the world has never seen. And in some ways it was, because at the time there was a version that had I think Bob Guccione himself involved in getting pornographic material cut into the movie, which is the story of Caligula, obviously. I know there were tons and tons of different cuts of this movie, most of them around or under 2 hours or in that time period, although I think there were longer cuts that made it into European screenings, possibly for festivals. And then I think there might have been some DVD or Blu-ray versions that came out in the last 10 years that also were a lot longer and had restored some of the longer footage. Pretty great cast, if you didn't know. Peter O'Toole is in here as Tiberius, which is like the previous Caesar character, emperor before Caligula takes power. John Gielgud, which you should know from Arthur probably. You've got Malcolm McDowell, of course, as Caligula himself. And then Teresa Ann Savoy is Drusilla, Caligula's lover and sister. Oops. And then you got Helen Mirren. And Helen Mirren at the time was kind of known, but looking at it now, if you have never seen older Helen Mirren movies and you only know her in the last 20, 30 years, you might be like, oh my gosh, Helen Mirren was young and unabashedly out there, just naked as a jaybird and doing her thing in this movie. So that would be a revelation for some younger viewers, but not for me as much, because I've seen, The Cook, the Thief, his wife and her lover, and some of the other older stuff she did. And I know that as a younger star, she was much more seen as a beautiful young woman doing all these things. Anyway, my original impression of Caligula, which I did see back in the day, and I believe it's one of the first X-rated movies I ever saw. I remember they had 2 versions of the VHS that they would rent. There was and one had blue and one had red or something like that. They changed the color slightly, which was this kind of this coin with the Caligula's face on the coin, and it was bleeding. Well, my memory of it was that it was not very interesting, that it kind of rambled, and that it was kind of a mess. Oh, now, so this version, and I guess I shouldn't go on too long about this, but the biggest selling point for this version is they took a whole bunch of unused or unseen material. They had hours and hours and hours and hours of footage and audio, and they recut it and remastered and all that. And essentially this version, which is about 3 hours long, supposedly includes 0 footage from the original movie. 0. The reason that some of it will still seem familiar to people who watch the older version is some of the sequences are sequences that were in the original, but they're alternate shots or alternate angles, different angles of the same view. Like maybe they had a couple cameras going. And then there's a whole bunch of scenes that are just straight out of the gate, not in the original at all. But some of the big beats are still there. Now, what was my experience? What did I expect coming into this? I wasn't sure. I was just kind of curious. My first impression is this, except for a few sequences, which obviously I did remember, and there's a wedding scene that's very memorable. There's an opening scene, which is extended and different in this, but there's some elements of that were memorable from the original. And also this execution wall machine that was in the original, there's a version of that in here as well, or a sequence that is a version of that sequence in here. My biggest impression is this seemed like a very different movie. Well, I don't know if it was my memory or if it just was different, but it seemed a little more coherent. The overall story made a little more sense here. There was characters that I don't even remember hardly in the original movie being there and that really were highlighted. I know that Helen Mirren's character seemed much more highlighted in this version, I think, as well as some other side characters. But all of that being said, it's still kind of a mess. And the mess of this one isn't so much that it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. You're following the kind of the rise and fall of Caligula, one of the most notorious, cruel, and just debauched emperors of all time and leaders of all time. The biggest thing is when I'm watching this whole thing, it kind of becomes so why? Why are we, it's kind of just a parade of horrors and excess. And it doesn't really lead up to much. Like, I don't think get to learn. It's not a point of view as far as I could tell. Like, okay, Caligula was terrible. Yep, we see it. Why did we watch that for 3 hours? And when it all came down to the end, other than the opulent sets and this kind of crazy production design, which is very stage bound also, this feels like you're watching an operatic stage production in the way it's given to you, not a lived in world. When all was said and done, I just felt like this was kind of a version of Salo, if you've ever seen that, which you may not have. But it's just showing that people in power are debauched and amoral and cruel, and that's the world that we live in sometimes. And it's kind of so I get that, but what are you trying to tell me about it? When all is said and done, I still think it doesn't work much. I still think it's kind of a mess. It's just a different mess. Definitely a curiosity for people who would like to see it. I think it's worth checking out for film fans, but I can't really recommend it as a great movie. So, if you're curious, go check it out. Don't expect to love it. Someone might, but not me. I would say I rate this at 2.5, mostly just for the production and the audacity of it, and just seeing some of these great actors in this kind of wackadoodle, disturbing / just garish movie. So for that alone, it almost makes it to a recommend, but it's not quite there because it's just a lot to watch. All right, real quick, 2 other things. Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, terrible convoluted title, by Adam Wingard, is now on Max. I did not see this in the theater. I didn't look that great, but it also did look interestingly bad. So that's kind of why I wanted to check this out. In that factor, I think it actually paid off quite well, and I think it met its goal. This is best taken, I think, as a Saturday morning cartoon version of the Godzilla universe for kids. This is very much a kids type movie in that it's silly, loud, full of weirdo ideas that don't really make any sense, but it's kind of a lot of fun to watch. I would say it's like 75% basically CGI cartoon, pretending to be a non-CGI movie with a few human scenes thrown in to make you think it's supposed to be a real world. The human scenes are pretty much just explication and silly and make no sense. And they try to throw in a character that's essentially a Guardians of the Galaxy type Peter Quill kind of guy with his even playing music and stuff. And he's basically a dentist / veterinarian for Kongs and Godzillas, which makes no sense. And he's one of the worst characters they've ever added. And they have some pretty bad characters, including Podcaster Dude. Anyway, the humans don't really matter in this movie. You come here for King Kong and Godzilla. This is the King Kong show. All you really need to know is that there's the hollow earth underneath the regular earth. It's full of creatures. Kong lives down there. He's kind of a sad and lonely dude. Really, seriously, that's the best reason to watch this movie. Sad and lonely Kong in his empty mansion of a hollow world, wandering around, setting traps. Yeah, having a toothache, having sadness, and then he encounters a whole hidden ape world. And when he encounters the hidden ape world, he wants to become the champion of the hidden ape world and to save them from their despotic Caligula-like leader. There's some great scenes where he meets a little mini Kong, who is a little ape that, I can't swear, a little jerk ape. And he uses the jerk ape as nunchucks. That happens. There's just a lot of silly stuff in this movie. If you can get into the silly vibe, I think you'll have a good enough time. This is solid 3-star banger territory. If you get into it knowing what you're getting, you're going to have a good time. If you get into it knowing what you're getting and you don't want to get into it, you're going to have a terrible time. And that's kind of the epitome of a 3-star banger. It's Not a great movie, but made for all the right reasons for the people who do want to see it. It's not going to give you the feels like Godzilla -1, but it might give you some fun energy. And the last thing I'll mention is a ongoing series that I'm watching, which is a remake of a Alan J. Pakula movie from the 90s, early 90s, if I remember correctly, called Presumed Innocent, which I hardly even remember that movie. But the TV series now on Apple TV Plus or TV or whatever is out right now. I think it's 5 or 6 episodes in. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Ruth Negga, and also has Bill Camp, Peter Sarsgaard, and some other people. If you have been needing a movie, or in this case, a TV series that kind of taps into that overheated erotic thriller style bombast and melodrama and ridiculousness that was all the rage in the 90s especially, this kind of does that and it'll fill that void. It also gives you, Eric, it also gives you in the second half of the season some strong courtroom stuff, but all of it's pretty silly and pretty ridiculous. The basic concept is that Rusty, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Rusty is this DA or whatever. One of their assistant DAs has been murdered, and she was having an affair with Rusty. So Rusty is now the suspect. He's the prime suspect, and there's inner office politics and vindictiveness going on, and the world's after him, and his wife and his family are appalled by his, cheating ways, and it's just all seamy, bad behavior. And Jake Gyllenhaal is perfect for this role. As this kind of downfallen, I was a good guy. What do you mean? I'm not this kind of guy, but I'm also kind of a terrible guy. To me, that's his sweet spot, because personally, he seems kind of like a terrible person to me always. I know people love him. They think he's the best guy. He just seems like kind of a terrible person to me every time I see him. So I think when he plays this kind of real fallen hero type guy that's kind of frantically trying to, regain his previous reputation, I think that he does really well in those roles. Or if it's something like a Nightcrawler or something where he's just straight up a bad guy. But yeah, if you're looking for something or need that kind of energy, something that's a little more of a easy watch as opposed to having to really get into prestige television, go check out Presumed Innocent. It'll probably be done pretty soon, so you can hop in there now and get 5 or 6 episodes under your belt in the next few days and be on board for the final few episodes. Anyway, that is all I have for this week. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Don't forget, I need to know, what is this segment? Like, do we need a sounder? Like, tell Eric and me and Greg, like, is this work? Should I be at the end of the episode like this? I think I probably should be at the end. Let them do their thing and then just throw me in there like a post-credit sequence. That's me, post-credit sequence Bruce. Anyway, have fun, guys. Thanks for continuing to enjoy, hopefully, CinemAddicts, and continuing to support what we do, especially what Eric and Greg do, because they put in the yeoman's work. I just drop in here like a weirdo uncle locked up in the attic. Goodbye.